Give a little high kick for you, Cowboys. I'm excited about this. They reported to training camp yesterday before they took the practice field. Before they take the practice field today, we have to send it out to Oxnard, California, where Jane Slater is probably just as excited to be back at it.
Okay, the Dallas Cowboys are one of 5 teams taking the show on the road as they are here in Oxnard for training camp. Of course, practice starts at 11 o'clock here behind me. That will be their first practice of camp. And ahead of it, we had the introductory press conference on Wednesday. Now, never short of material to deliver from those, but I thought one of the more interesting moments was when Mike McCarthy talked about Jerry Jones relaying to him that Hard Knock cameras are going to be following him around. He said he almost drove his truck off the road. Another highlight for me was when Jerry Jones was relaying his time with Barry Switzer, who came to town to interview for a coaching position, found out that Jimmy Johnson was no longer the head coach, and told Jerry that he effed it up. And Jerry agreed, a sentiment a lot of 90s football fans will agree with. Again, 11 o'clock is when the players hit the field, and we'll have all of those news and notes here on NFL Network. Okay, back to you.
We appreciate you, Jane. Yes, you're not wrong. There were some incredible moments, some gems at yesterday's intro press conference. As Jane Slater just mentioned, Jerry Jones, he never disappoints.
I'd do anything known to man to get in a Super Bowl. That's a fact. And there's nothing in my mind that can have a higher priority than that. But the thing that means the most to me and I care about, and I could probably be anywhere in the world I want to be right now. I want to be here with our team.
He's obviously passionate, Nate. I was watching you watch him. I would like to know your thoughts. His enthusiasm for winning has always been there.
No doubt about it. And I feel like Jerry Jones, he wants that enthusiasm, maybe even that emotion, which we saw at the end, to bleed onto his team. Because oftentimes, we look at some of these very talented Cowboys teams that on paper should win a Super Bowl year in and year out, but they're not as passionate as the guy who's running everything. Jerry Jones, when he speaks for a few reasons. One, because this is his business. He's the captain of the ship, right? He wants the Cowboys to be one of the greatest, not just organizations, but businesses in the world, which they are. Two, he speaks because I feel like Jerry Jones loves the attention, and there's nothing wrong with that. Lastly, and more importantly, from a football player's perspective, I feel like he speaks because he wants his team to listen. For a guy like that who could be anywhere in the world, who could be on his yacht traveling around the Mediterranean, he's sitting here knowing that if I am here, passionate, showing that I'm emotional and invested in this season, the guys that I'm paying these millions of dollars to, they need to be the same. And that's why I love it. Jerry Jones, he cracks jokes and he has his Jerry Jones-isms and we have a good time. But this is the Jerry Jones I'd like to see because I hope that his team reflects that as well.
I hope so, too. I hope it's different because it's late July, Jerry's saying some fun, catchy things, and we're rooting for the Cowboys. It's going to be fun. Is this going to be any different? We've done this for a long time. We love the 90s here. I follow a lot of 90s nostalgia accounts on Instagram. They just churn out stuff like, chain wallets and see-through phones and Goosebumps novels. And the Dallas Cowboys.
That's your algorithm?
Yeah, that's it. That's my algorithm. And the Dallas Cowboys should show up on those too. Guys, here we go.
Okay.
1995, Jerry's saying we got Troy and Emmett and Michael, and we're not constrained by the dadgum salary cap. It's a great time to be alive. This is the last time they were in a Super Bowl. This is the last time they even got to a title game. It's 2021. So is this just the same thing? Are we getting fall into the trap of saying, oh, it's great, and Cowboys this, Cowboys that? I actually don't think it is. I think since this time, I think Jerry is this excited, and this verklempt, by the way, because I think this is the most talented Cowboys team we've seen since then. I'm excited, but I can barely speak. There were some great ones. Some of the Romo teams, and great. I think this is the most talented team they have had since the mid-'90s. And the huge part of that is Dak. Dak was so good last year, like MVP good. And that's why that injury was so devastating. He was brilliant. And I would just put this last layer on here, though. That's why there's a lot of pressure on this team, because I have to tell you, it doesn't get easier than this to win a division. It's not just that you're the most talented team you've had in 25 years. You're going against two wildly unproven quarterbacks and an old man in a beard who's never played in a playoff game. You better win this division.
Yeah.
Huge talent, huge pressure. And when I'm looking at these 90s nostalgia blogs, Tom, I'm going to see America online. I don't want to see America's team.
Speaking of the 90s, take a look at how long it's been since the Cowboys have been to a conference championship game relative to the other teams in the NFC. I mean, we're talking about one of the longest droughts. The Lions, who are always the punchline to every joke about how long it's been. The Washington football team doesn't even have the same name as they had in 1991. But the Cowboys since 1995. When I see Jerry Jones, and we always see, he'll do these extensive press conferences more than any other owner in the league does. And you see him joking and using these weird phrases, and it's hilarious. I've never seen him get choked up multiple times like I did yesterday, which to me just says this is a guy who is 78 years old. He's in the Hall of Fame. He's already accomplished more than practically anybody in football, but he knows his legacy is going to be in part what happens now. In other words, he doesn't want it to be, well, in Jerry's last 35, 40 years, whatever it was as Cowboys owner, they never got back to another Super Bowl. No, he knows this can be a stamp on everything that he's built. He's poured his life into the Dallas Cowboys. This is his life. He could be anywhere. I'd probably be on the yacht, frankly, when I'm 78 years old. He wants to be here in Oxnard, hoping they're starting a Super Bowl.
And to that point, similar to what Kyle is saying about the 90s, it could be, him understanding that if he doesn't win, then people are always going to attach his success to a handful of very, very talented players in the 90s. And it's like Phil Jackson. When he was with the Bulls, it's like, is it Phil or is it the Bulls? And then Phil went on to the Lakers, and it's like, Phil got the sauce. There's something that he does as a coach. Now, Jerry Jones is a fantastic owner. Like, we get it, and he's one of the best in the business. But there are people starting to think, like, can you build something after those 90s teams? Because if not, then maybe it was just those handful of guys that were on your roster and not on anybody else's.
And I think with this whole 90s thing, you could just define it a different way. It's salary cap. Like, when you look at Jerry Jones, if we're just being cut and dry and as it is, his enthusiasm has always been there, Nate. I would love to have him if I'm a fan, because he's going to treat the players really well, put them in the best position to succeed, give them a great environment, be committed, put money into facilities, all of that, take out his checkbook and write the big contracts when he needs to. But sometimes that enthusiasm has to be put in the right places. There's questions. You had 2,000-yard receivers. Should you have signed CeeDee Lamb when you had defensive struggles? Did you have to give Zeke that big deal? I will say right now, though, what they did, I've seen signs of growth in the salary cap era with Jerry Jones, even just very recently. They turned a corner potentially. They spent 6 picks on defense. I'm not used to seeing that. It wasn't like the sexiest big name guy. We were all like, oh, Jerry. He didn't do it. He got the deal done with Dak Prescott. So I have enthusiasm that they're getting it right now.
Yeah, that's kind of the rap that you're getting, is that the salary cap started to take place in the early mid-90s, and then really like 96 was settling in.
Savvy.
Yeah,
scrappy.
It's like, you don't think it's a coincidence that maybe they haven't won a Super Bowl since then, because they were like the Yankees then, and they could just pay. I remember an experience from our show. We had Charlotte Jones on, who comes all the time, and the Eagles had just won the Super Bowl. And we were teasing her about it. She says, well, we'll let them have one. We have multiple. And we were like, yeah, but it's been a long time. This is a fresh one. Doesn't this kind of mean a little bit more? Tom, I think your point is, it's been a long time since they've had one. And Jerry looks at it. Not only is this going to be the era that I'm remembered by, I think this might be the team he's remembered by at the end. I mean the 2021 Cowboys, because this might be the best shot that we've got for several years. This thing could fall apart after this. The time is now, and I think he knows it.
Let's talk about the opportunity in the division.
Doesn't get easier.
What he's built. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll talk about the Cowboys, where they belong in the NFC. Do they belong among the elite? We'll be discussing that, of course. They're at training camp. James Slater is there in Oxnard, California, with more. But let's talk about the Buccaneers and Tom Brady. Despite his latest trip to the White House after yet another Super Bowl, Tom is still thinking about all the teams that passed up on the chance to sign him last offseason. Here he is talking to his guy, Jim Gray, just yesterday.
They know who they are. I mean, they know that the teams.
You think they know?
Yeah, the teams know who were probably interested, and yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, everyone's got a choice to choose. I think what you realize is that there's not as many smart people as you think. It's just the reality. I think it'd be a no-brainer if you said, hey, you got a chance to get Wayne Gretzky on your team, or you get a chance at Michael Jordan on your team. Oh, we don't need him. No thanks. We're good. In my mind, I'm kind of thinking, okay, well, let me go show those teams what they're missing.
Some fire from Tom Brady, Nate.
Yeah, no doubt about it, and I love it. Tom Brady doesn't talk much, but we know that he's motivated. a little bit different, wired a little bit different. That's the reason why he's still successful, and he's 45 years old.
He's still wired that way, Kyle.
Yeah, and listen, if people are triggered by him mentioning his name with Gretzky and Jordan, they shouldn't be. I actually like that. I think that was one of the most genuine Tom Brady soundbites we've ever heard. I really do. He's like, I'm those guys. I'm that good. They should have signed me, and he has earned that. I actually think it's one of my favorite Brady soundbites ever.
Why? How could it be triggering to anyone? Of course.
Because it's egotistical, and maybe he's not as good as Jordan, and maybe those types of things.
Yeah.
People are out to get him for it.
Of course.
I'm not. I actually, like Tom, you can say that, and those people were stupid. Yeah.
The fact that, that's the line in that entire thing is there's not as many smart people as you think. That's basically saying there's a lot of dumb people running NFL teams right now.
Yeah.
Why didn't you all want me? Why didn't all 32 teams want Tom Brady on your team? That is a rare crack. And you can see it in the look on Tom Brady's face, too, where he kind of gets that in the eyes.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know what I'm about to do right here.
Yeah.
You know? He knew exactly what he was saying there.
And Tom talked about his return to New England